Is Destiny 2 worth the investment? Hello there, I'm New the Gaming New. Thank you for stopping by my channel, and I'm looking forward to trying to find out with you whether or not this game is worth your investment or not. Let's start with the most obvious question first. Did you play the first Destiny, and did you enjoy it? If you played the first Destiny and enjoyed it, then you might have a good chance here as well, as it is the same game, just massively upgraded. However, if you didn't really like the first game, odds are you're probably not going to be able to get into this one much either, as it is the same game, just massively upgraded. Now, on that note, they did promise us a lot of story content, which they did provide quite a bit more than the original Destiny came out with, as the original Destiny was missing a lot of lore and hid the lore that was in the game behind grimoire cards, so you had to collect and go online to actually look at. While they've definitely done an upgrade on the grimoire card system by allowing you to check them as soon as you get the item, it still doesn't seem that they've put enough of the actual story content that they promised. I personally would like to have seen a lot more involving Gaul. However, unfortunately there was only about 4 cutscenes that actually had any real background on them, and honestly I just couldn't get fully attached and invested in the character like I was promised. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, as the game is still fun. However, I will note that this game may not be as fun if you do not have someone to play with. If you are playing this game solo, and you don't really enjoy a good grind, this may not actually be a game for you. Now, while the grind is definitely much more realistic than it was in Destiny 1, it's far more forgiving for sure. I was able to obtain plenty of gear already, and they constantly upgrade your abilities. Instead of having to worry so much about getting stuff that's worse for your character, you're generally going to get items that are better for you at a pretty decent pace. Also, I feel like it's important to mention that the combat has been drastically altered, allowing for more customization and versatility in combat. While in the original game you were forced to have a primary, secondary, and heavy weapon based on the design that Bungie had already set for you, in Destiny 2 you're actually allowed to have a kinetic energy and a power weapon instead. This allows you to have a sniper rifle in your power slot and still have potentially an auto rifle in your primary and in your secondary slots, your kinetic and energy slots. This is pretty interesting because now you actually have a little bit more to work with as far as your setup goes, your loadout goes. Now, the biggest things to mention about this are, so far we haven't seen any primaries that have elemental attributes attached to them aside from exotics. This is definitely interesting because the raids coming up will probably not be dropping weapons that change that rule, just because the name of the first slot is in fact kinetic. While secondary weapons, which are now classified as energy weapons, will always have an element attached to them, you can actually now change those elements using mods. Mods have been introduced to the game to allow you to change attributes and increase certain attributes in game. While these mods are potentially obtainable on the Eververse, they are always going to come out as commons, and therefore not really be worth very much. The actual in-game classification will be considered rare, however, they are extremely common in-game. I had close to 23 of them by the time I had beaten the story, without ever having to do anything to go out of my way to get them. Also, I think it's important to note that when you do get to end-game, the gunsmith will sell you the same mods for Glimmer, and you can also unlock through him epic level mods, legendary mods, that will be far better. So the ones you can get from Eververse really won't be beneficial to you in any real way aside from just getting there really quickly. It doesn't seem like it's really that much of a good trade-off. Moving onward, they've also done a lot with the Crucible lately, allowing you to have new game modes, including a PvP based competitive mode. This mode makes it to where you're gonna have to stay and think on your feet because you and your allies only have a set number of lives, and if you keep dying, you're taking lives away from your teammates. This can get pretty intense at times, and I found myself on the receiving end of a lot of beatdowns in that particular game mode. If you go into that game mode, you definitely want to do so with the intent to play high level PvP with a group of your friends, for sure. One of the other things they've implemented to the game since the first game is a lot more versatility with your clan tags. You actually have a fully developed clan system in Destiny now that wasn't there before. that can be managed mostly in game. And you even get clan banners now that you can customize, carry with your character, that also give you benefits in game, like better engram drop chances and better rewards from different events. Customization has taken an overhaul as well, as shaders have changed from the original Destiny to one shader dyeing your entire outfit but being reusable, to now you can do different parts of your outfits different colors, but the shaders are consumable. The benefit is now you can have your boots and your jacket be different colors from your gloves and your helmet and so on and so forth. Also, you can use shaders on your legendary weapons, your sparrows, your ships, and your ghosts now. I think this is actually an improvement, as now you have to think about what you're going to put your shaders on before you actually put them on something. If you have a really good looking shader and you want to save it for a high-end piece of gear, you can always find an outfit that you like the look of, put that shader on it, and if you do get a piece of gear that's better, you can infuse that gear into the gear you like the look of. This will allow you to keep the shader and the benefits of the new gear at the same time. This also means that for a lot of the better looking shaders, it's unlikely that everyone's going to start looking the same in the tower like they used to in Destiny 1. There was only a handful of shaders that anyone really liked the look of, and I found a lot of people looking very much alike. This definitely gives each person their own unique individuality. We also need to talk about microtransactions, as they can be a definite make it or break it for most players. Now, while they are certainly in the game through the form of the Eververse Trading Company, it is important to note that the in-game silver that you can purchase can only be used to buy bright engrams, which are also rewarded to you in-game. You get 3 for beating the story, and another 1 for every level you would make after 20. The things that are in these bright engrams have been stirring up quite a bit of controversy, as the contents could develop between shaders, to ships, to sparrows, to armor. The armor doesn't really have stats on it that are worth mentioning, and they're entirely meant to be infused by the armor that you're currently wearing. That allows them to actually have the stats of the armor that you have. There's not much benefit to that really, aside from just looking really, really awesome while you're playing the game. The mods that are also in the pack are, once again, very common mods that you find a lot of before you get there, and are even common inside the engrams, as each one that I've gotten has given me about 2 or 3 mods each. But once again, you can obtain them all this very easily in game. The only thing that is possibly of any controversy at all in the packs is the sparrows, as the sparrows do seem to have varying speeds. But with no actual sign of the Sparrow Racing League so far, I don't know if that's actually going to be beneficial or not. Going back to the original question, should you invest in Destiny 2? The game does have a very large starting price point, with a deluxe edition costing $100. If you are playing this game alone, I definitely would not really suggest it. I would only really want to play this with people. If you don't have friends that are already invested in the game, it can get really lonely and boring, I imagine. Also, the game does heavily encourage you to play both PvP and PvE modes. If you are set against one type of mode or the other, you will be restricting yourself of content. Therefore, you might not have as good of a time. However, if you do have friends and you did enjoy the first Destiny, it can be a really pleasant experience. Well, I do hope that this has been helpful in your decision. Thank you very much for attending, and you all have a wonderful day.